Okay, we're going to take a look at a little different essay, but I want you to keep in mind this idea of an axis, and that means that modes are moving back and forth among each other. We have exposition, persuasion, narrative, and description. And then we also have the movement of diction from abstract or L2 to language that's more concrete. And then remember that these two modes are significant in this form because they allow the essay to move toward the more personal and away from what sometimes, if you stay in these modes, creates a very general essay that anyone could put his name to. Okay, so in this essay, I put in lavender the movements of description and the movements of concrete diction, right? Obviously, bacon is, for instance, a factored form of food, right? So we're getting a little closer to the prime, but in a lot of these examples, you've got audible pops of grease in the frying pan, and the alchemy brewing downstairs. So these are moments of showing writing here again, where we can visually see something that's filmable, right? So this is our descriptive modes primarily, and here there's the sense that narration is going on as well. Now, what I have placed in bold are the persuasive modes, which, as you know, are anchored to L2 when you make associations. So I want to mention a couple things. One, we have this opening, I like bacon, which is a great first line because it has not too much voice to it. It's quirky, it's concrete a lot. And then the last line in this paragraph does look like something like a thesis statement. And so in this sense, this essay is a little different, and Hurley is playing a little bit more with his experience with the traditional essay. But this is something that I would suggest you could take this out, because you could let the descriptive and narrative modes that are in here, and also the additional L2 that, like I said, I placed in bold, communicate this idea. So this is a place where I think there could be more restraint. But if you move to this first sentence, the first experience would be that which the meat is being prepared by another. So there is a sense of this sounds like a topic sentence. It doesn't really have any associative idea. It's mostly an L1, but still it's looking like a topic sentence. And if you look down here, he's created another different situation that governs this paragraph, which is cooking the bacon myself. So we do have a little bit of a sense of topic sentences that are organizing these paragraphs, which is fine. You'll notice too, we still have a violation. There's no association in there, so we still are violating the CEA, which is great fun. Okay, Um, so, and then what I didn't bold is mostly exposition. So if there's unhighlighted in between the the bold and the lavender is for the most part expository, explaining mode. And then the bold is the persuasive mode, where he's interpreting, he's beginning to make some interpretations of the details. So you'll see that's happening here. We have a nice chunk, I think, in this paragraph. And again, I want you to notice that it's this descriptive mode often that's what is making this interesting. If you think about, for instance, if you just had the bold phrases, my experience reveals my, fill in the blank here. My experiences with editor-in-chief, for instance, he mentions later, reveal a microcosm of who I am. Anybody can say that. And if we just had an essay filled with all the L2, her love is more apparent, tangible motivations like those always encourage me to persist as well. Statements like this alone, that's what creates an essay that is much too general. So that's why I think I caution you to experience and practice some restraint with your L2, because obviously you wouldn't want to build a whole essay with that, because you could see where it gets general. Okay, so as we're moving, you can read through this. In this paragraph, you've got some nice showing details here, and then we're picking up the pace in terms of inserting some L2 here, but still notice this, we still have this nice blending between the descriptive, expository, persuasive mode here, and that's what keeps the energy, I think, of this paragraph very interesting. And then we are finishing up the essay, and we have the typical conclusionary paragraph where we have a lot of L2, and here's where I don't think you need it all, but it certainly happens, because we get it. So a lot of some of these statements aren't actually, I think, necessary. As I hope you've noticed, Bacon is more than a transcendent ending. Bacon is the journey. It's a journey where many factors spur me on towards the unknown ending, with plenty of ups and downs along the way. However, not to chase this opportunity leaves me only time to regret. I try to live my life to the fullest. Some of these statements are pretty general, a little bit cliche. So that's why I think this is an area where I would practice some restraint of L2. You don't need all of this. And you can allow the descriptive narrative parts to do its work so that you don't actually have to come out and say this. But, obviously the essay works very well. It's a different mixture of those modes. So it probably has more, it obviously has more persuasive L2 than the Brendan O'Brien piece that we looked at in part in part 2. But I know I'm repeating myself, but what makes this essay works, or what in many ways rescues the essay from a lot of some of the generalized cliche statements that could apply to anyone, is the descriptive and the narrative modes, and the concreteness of using Bacon as the controlling movement of the piece. And in many ways we do have a narrative moment in time, which is basically breakfast, right? This is what's controlling that. So that's somewhat similar to the idea I mentioned before about picking a narrative frame that conceivably would have a beginning and an end. Again, just to recap, I try to cover all these ideas in terms of the essay form, the modes, the L1 quality, access of diction, violating the CEA, beware of L2. And then also keep in mind there's some resources here. Hopefully you can click this link. The Jesuit Journal, several college essay editions, and then the folder has some additional resources of some sample essays in it. And this was the 2012 edition I was talking about, and then you can review the CEA showing exercises to refresh your powers of description. Those begin here on page 40 in your CEA. Some good examples of first lines, thinking about some extending elaboration of ideas. Okay, so you can refresh your memory about that. Okay, good luck.